A decision by Prime Minister Scott Morrison today to dump the $90 billion French submarine project and press on with US nuclear technology to build even more expensive but nuclear-powered submarines in Australia, with the time frame on the project undetermined, other than that work will begin this decade. And it looks like that work will finish in 2040, but senior government sources say the plan is to have the subs in the water before then. We will know more after a task force takes 18 months to work out the path forward. Scott Morrison, Boris Johnson and Joe Biden announcing AUKUS early this morning, not replacing ANZUS, which is a treaty. This is billed as a strategic partnership about sharing weapons technology. The sharing of the US nuclear technology with Australia to build the submarines, the first time that has happened since 1958. The US shared it with Britain in that instance. There was an awkward moment, though, when it came to the US President's turn to acknowledge our PM at the announcement this morning.
I want to thank that fellow down under. Thank you very much, pal. Appreciate it, Mr. Prime Minister. I'm honored today to be joined by two of America's closest allies, Australia and the United Kingdom.
He got the name out eventually. AUKUS will involve greater use of American expertise. Australia's Defence Secretary, or Defence Department Secretary, should I say, Greg Moriarty, set out areas where cooperation could occur.
I'm particularly looking forward to engaging with US and UK counterparts around the cutting-edge technologies, not just the nuclear-powered submarine, but the other opportunities that are made available to us through the AUKUS arrangement: quantum, AI, cyber, undersea capabilities that we will be able to look to in future.
So Scott Morrison today also pledging to build Tomahawk cruise missiles to be on our Hobart-class destroyers, enabling our maritime assets to strike land targets at greater distances. Then there will be joint air-to-surface standoff missiles to be used by our aircraft. There will also be long-range anti-ship missiles and a development with the US of hypersonic missiles, and $1 billion to build weapons on Australian soil, a commitment which is being accelerated. Senior government sources say that there is no option with the present security situation, read threat from China, but to commit to far greater defence spending than 2% of GDP in the years ahead. There is no turning back on this, is Morrison's view. Here he calls the new partnership a forever partnership.
Today I announce a new partnership, a new agreement that I describe as a forever partnership. A forever partnership for a new time between the oldest and most trusted of friends. A forever partnership that will enable Australia to protect our national security interests, to keep Australians safe, and to work with our partners across the region to achieve the stability and security of our region. This forever partnership that we have announced today is the single greatest initiative to achieve these goals since the ANZUS alliance itself.
Scott Morrison's government has been working on this behind the scenes for 18 months, ever since the COVID threat raised its head in Australia and trade tensions began between Australia and Beijing. It came to a head with Scott Morrison's trilateral meeting with Boris Johnson and Joe Biden at Carbis Bay at the G7 Plus meeting at Cornwall. On that trip with the PM was the Director of the Office of National Intelligence, Andrew Shearer, a key sounding board on these matters. After that meeting, at his press conference, I asked the PM how often the word China was mentioned in the meeting. How many times did the word China come up in the trilateral meeting?
Well, you wouldn't expect me to be going into any detail about the specific discussions. What we had the opportunity today was to discuss the Indo-Pacific situation more broadly. Australia has no greater friends than the United States and the United Kingdom, and we've been working together on our respective security issues for a very long time.
After this, Morrison dined with Emmanuel Macron at the Elysee Palace in Paris, where he made clear to the French president Australia now wanted nuclear subs, not contemporary subs. The PM saying today things have changed from the benign security situation we had benefited from in the region for years.
The relatively benign security environment that Australia has enjoyed over many decades in our region is behind us. We have entered, no doubt, a new era.
But he makes clear the submarines will be nuclear powered, not nuclear armed.
This is about propulsion. This is not about acquiring nuclear weapons. Australia has no interest in that, no plans for it, no policy for it, no contemplation of it. It's not on our agenda.
The submarine deal the Australian government has cancelled with the French naval group has a sunk cost, or money already spent, of $2.4 billion. There is compensation on top of that, likely to be in the billions, but the government saying it's commercial in confidence, so can't say how much. Kieran here questioning the PM on Compo and also on why don't we have an ANZUS-style treaty rather than this defence technology partnership with the US and UK?
What do you have to pay in terms of compensation to the Naval Group? What's the dollar figure in compensation, if you can give that for us? Have you spoken to President Macron yet? And if so, what was his reaction? And then the other thing I wanted to ask you in relation to, if you look at NATO, for example, Article 5, collective defence. It requires every member to come to the other members' defensive attack. We don't have that, despite all of the commitments in ANZUS and AUKUS now, lots of dollars going in. Is it time for that sort of Article 5 commitment from the US, UK and us?
We're very, very pleased with the arrangements we have with the United States and our many other partners in the region. And no, we are not pursuing those types of arrangements. We have been able to directly communicate, I have, that decision to President Macron, and that was followed up, that communication, with a telephone discussion between the Ministers of Defence and Ministers of Foreign Affairs and their counterparts last night. Of course they're disappointed, but I want to be clear, this in no way reflects in any way, shape or form on the attack class submarine, the Naval Group, and the commitment of the French government and indeed President Macron personally to this project. They have been good partners. This is about our strategic interest.
Then in answer to Jonathan Lee, Scott Morrison said the nature of the new submarines was still to be worked out.
Will we be getting the British-made Astute class or the American-made Virginia class? And what is the expected cost to the Australian taxpayer? We
haven't determined the specific vessel that we will be building, but that will be done through the rather significant and comprehensive program assessment that will be done with our partners over the next 12 to 18 months. Now, that will also inform the costs, but we will have to spend more on defence.
Well, this announcement does not come pain-free, or might not come pain-free. We are yet to see if there's any backlash from China. New Zealand doesn't seem stoked about it. A pretty strong French reaction in the negative as well. Morrison spoke to Jacinda Ardern by phone yesterday, and the PM messaged Mr Macron. After the G7 Plus meeting, Boris Johnson told me in Britain that he did not want to see a Cold War with China. Can you see the difficulties Australia has with dealing with this?
I think people are worried about what's happening to the Uyghurs. They're worried about some of the ways China behaves in its region and actually behaves particularly towards Australia. So we stand shoulder to shoulder with our friends. But I think I probably speak for Scott as well when I say nobody wants to descend into a new Cold War.
And the Cold War question was the first question the PM got today.
Won't they just frame this as a Cold War type weapons buildup that Australia, the US and the UK are engaged in? Are you prepared for more economic trade sanctions from China in response to this? And are you seeking a meeting with President Xi to explain what this is all about?
Well, that engagement has already commenced with China, as it has with many countries in the region. There is an open invitation for President Xi and I to discuss these and many other matters, and that has always been there. Australia remains open to discuss these and all issues that are important to the Indo-Pacific. I believe and I hope we would both share the same objective of a peaceful Indo-Pacific where the sovereignty and independence of nations is understood and respected, and that enables their own citizens to flourish. And that's what we all want. It is not an uncommon thing for countries to take decisions in their own strategic interests and to build up their defence capabilities. China makes the same decisions, as does other countries within our region. So I don't think that should be seen as necessarily extraordinary or in the terms that you suggested. And in any response that was along the lines that you suggested, I couldn't see as that corresponding with what Australia has done.
Today's announcement will certainly lead to speculation. Scott Morrison is keen on a khaki election. Traditionally, and particularly under Bill Shorten, Labor did not fall for this, trying to keep barely a cigarette paper between it and government on matters of national security. Here is Anthony Albanese's reaction today.
Labor welcomes the Australia-UK-US agreement to maximise the interoperability of our defence and security arrangements. But many questions remain outstanding. We need to know the full cost of the abandonment of the existing program